Hey guys, bjthebrave here, and I am doing a much requested video today. People have been asking me since the patch to focus on Turvagon and to take a look at the Terror of Vardenghast, who, you know, both received buffs in different ways. A few of the Tyranid cards got buffed, so that benefits both factions, but obviously the Warlord's abilities both got buffed too. So the biggest thing with the Terror was that his Alpha Warrior ability got a slight buff from, instead of giving it +1 melee attack as standard, it gets +2 melee attack, and he still gets the additional 1 for each friendly troop. So I've already done a video showing 2 different deck variants for the Turvagon, who I believe is very strong right now. If you've not seen that video, go and check that out on my YouTube channel, and I'll leave a link above here. In addition, I want to remind you that I did do a Terror of Vardenghast deck guide called Critters. If you go back and look at that, it's not too old, and actually I started there. I went back and looked at that Critters deck, and what I realised is that that deck, for that kind of like go wide swarm type of approach, that deck still, it hasn't changed much really. There's a couple of things that I would tweak, and if people are really keen to see me do a kind of 2.0 version of that, let me know in the comments, and I will do. But ultimately what I wanted to tell you is that hasn't actually changed much. You can still run that and it'll be slightly more powerful now actually. What I wanted to do is take a look at Terror of Vardenghast with fresh eyes and think about it in a slightly different way. And I've kind of come up with what I'm calling the Assassin's build for Terror of Vardenghast, and that's what I want to kind of bring you today. So I've played this deck a little bit, and I've kind of evolved it and tweaked it as I've won and lost and learned a few lessons and stuff. I've kind of evolved it slightly, so it certainly isn't necessarily the complete package right now. It could be improved. You guys could improve it and make your own tweaks. I might improve it too. We're playing with it a little bit more, but I'm certainly starting to find that this is somewhat competitive, and yeah, definitely gives you a really good shot if you really want to run the Terror on ladder. So what we're going to do is just break down the deck, have a little look, and talk about why I've picked the things that I have. So what we're trying to do with the Terror is we don't want the game to go on too long with this deck. Right now the meta has slowed down a little bit, and I think that gives the Terror a little window of opportunity. It can actually end the game just a bit quicker than a lot of decks, and the Terror himself being able to you know, go real big on his own power and somewhat blind to your opponent is a real advantage. So what I mean is your opponent can see how many cards you've got in hand, but he doesn't know what you've got. He doesn't know if you've got a Ripper Swarm. He doesn't know what you've got in there that could suddenly lead to a really large Terror attack coming back your way and his way. And of course, when it's your turn, you can build one of the things I like about Terror is you can build a wide board and then immediately get the benefit, because you don't need those units to attack. It's the benefit of the Terror of Vardenghast attacking himself. So I think that's something I really like about Terror. What we're trying to do then with this deck is to really lean into the stealth mechanic and time our ability to get a really big Terror off. Another thing that perhaps is overlooked sometimes about the Terror is that when you use his ability, it does give him flying, so sometimes we use the Terror to just remove an enemy flyer, because that can be a problem for a lot of other Tyranid decks. Terror has no such problem with that, so another way of using the Alpha Warrior. But what I'm finding with this deck is I'm not trying to use the Alpha Warrior every turn, not by a long shot. Similarly to other Warlord powers, it's more about timing it correctly when we use it, and it's very much used as the finisher, so you should see Alpha Warrior as the way you should win most of your games really. Along with that finisher, of course, we also have the Ravenous Hunter, because, you know, what Tyranid deck leaves home without it? But let's just have a quick look at the deck. So we do run double Neuraloid, and the main reason for this is that it enables us to get that essentially free Synapse ability when we want, but also it has the double synergy with Terror, obviously, because it's a 0 drop, so it means it's another body for going wide. So I'll often play this on the turn that I want to end the game. I only run 1 in Circle the Prey. I mean, it's obviously one of the best cards in the collection, but I found that you don't really need 2 because so many of the units themselves come with stealth. So I'm not actually convinced I even need that 1, although it has been quite handy. So I think 1 is about the sweet spot for this deck. if you wanted to go to 0, you could run obviously run the what's it called, Infinite Biomorphologies instead, which is a card I really want to get into this deck. I just can't quite figure out where I want to put it. But I think one stealth works quite well. Also be 1 energy. You know, if it's like turn 5, you can play 4-drop and that. So there's some sort of energy efficiency going on with that. We do run the double predator instincts though, because obviously being able to flank is really key and important, so that we can trade or remove big units with our venom throats, for example. Now the Ripper Swarms are fantastic in this deck, as you'd imagine. These are the kind of middle ground, if you like, for us between an all-out go-wide deck like the Critters build that I mentioned earlier. Again, if you've not seen that, go back and watch the video on my channel. But Ripper allows this type of deck to still go wide when we need to. It's also just a very flexible slot card, right? Like, I don't know, if it's turn 4, we can get a 4-4. If it's turn 3, we can get a 3-3. If we've got our Tyranid Prime down, we can do some silly things, getting the +1 melee attack, +1 health, and make a really busted unit. So it's just all round quite flexible. Ripper Swarm does really well. I think any Terror deck should have double Ripper Swarm in. We run 1 Adrenal Surge. Now we're probably looking for this to combine, if possible, with something like the Ravenous Hunter, or just with a Synapse ability to give both a creature and the Terror a buff. Obviously, if we get the Adrenal Surge off, giving it +2 melee attack, and we get the Alpha Warrior ability, then that's puts us up to 6 attack immediately, and that's without even talking about having any other bodies down on the board. So we do run just the 1 Surge, either early removal or as a finisher. Double Node Beast is pretty much mandatory in every single Tyranid deck. Sometimes we just run a single copy if we want the Synapse, but deploy a single copy, but often we just, you know, build up swarm them up, obviously, to get the bigger body. Now, Augmented Ferocity is the heal card of choice in this deck, and that's because it gives the +2 melee attack, which, of course, when we have a Warlord that has massive melee attack potential already, this just plays into that synergy, and again is a card that can be combined really well with Alpha Warrior to give the Terror a really large attack. It also helps because we're going to have decks where we're going to have games with this deck where we often are in a race essentially with our opponent, and so having that little bit of heal can really make a big difference as well. Gene Stealers give us a 3-drop that we can play, and the first of our kind of stealth units to get on board. I did add the Warriors. I wasn't running the Warriors initially, but what I realised when I was playing that this deck is that one of the challenges I had in certain games was sort of falling behind early. So I've actually put the Tyranid Warriors in. They're also, because we run a lot of stealth units, they're also a unit that actually has some ranged attack. So they can't just be sort of cheaply you know, traded early for free, like obviously the Stealers can. The Stealer attacks with the melee, but then it gets a hit back on the range and it just dies and trades poorly. So the Tyranid Warriors are actually pretty good in here. You can play around with them. I mean, if you can figure out a different way, then, you know, maybe you could get away with dropping them, but I feel more comfortable having the Warriors in there, and it just means between them, the Stealers, and things like the Ripper Swarms, I've usually got some early game options. Now, Ravenous Hunter we've already talked about, and really again this is super powerful with the Terror, because the Terror, it's not uncommon that I end up with 6-7 attack off the Terror. Obviously if you play this guy, that could be 16 damage just from the Terror itself, so the Ravenous Hunter is just even more dangerous in this deck, I think. We do run the Tyranid Prime because it's the Tyranid Prime. We run 2 Venom Throats, so again, nice 4-drop, quite a nice one to kind of target for the Encircle the Prey or the Predator Instincts, so that we can keep that nice and safe and trade with something big. And especially now where we're obviously seeing a lot more Tervigon builds out there with really big units and Chaos builds and things like that, I think the Venom Throat's in a pretty good spot right now. The Von Ryan's Leaper is our next stealth unit that we're going on for, so you can sort of see this Gene Stealer into Von Ryan's, and then on the 5-drop we got the Death Leaper, so lots and lots of stealth units, which I really like this approach with the Terror, because it means that we can really always put that damage on our opponent and get them into range basically of threatening with a really large Terror to finish. We do run a single Rapacious Hunger. I'm not sure about this card. I just, every time I don't run it, I feel like I'm made to pay for it. And then I put it in my deck and sometimes it does nothing. But I think it's there. One of the big things I like about this is the ability to heal, actually. It's another way of kind of healing and clearing the board. And often we don't want our terror or our units to be distracted from being able to go face sometimes, like with loads of little piddly units. So something like Rapacious Hunger can just help mop those up. You could run the Blast, trying to remember the name of it, the 2-drop, which I was running initially in this deck. So when I first put this together, I did have double bounding leap as a way of being able to essentially go face and deal with those little critters. I still think that makes a lot of sense in theory, but then I did find that I did have games where this was just sort of sitting in my hand and not really doing anything. So I would encourage you to test Bounding Leap, actually. Maybe a one-off Bounding Leap is good, but it does in theory play into that idea that you don't get distracted by smaller units, and you can finish units off and stealth units and all of that, or uncomfortable flyers and things like that. So I think Bounding Leap is good in this deck, but in the end I decided to cut it, and I ran with one Rapacious Hunger. Now, another unit that wasn't in the deck when I first built it was the Tyrant Guard. I kind of thought that because I was running so much stealth that, you know, they can't trade with me the turn to put them down, and then I could kind of clear units. And I kind of thought that I wouldn't really need the guard, but what I found is that because you're a 35 health warlord and you are using your warlord to attack quite often, similar to Harken, similar to Gordrang, what I've learned about these 35 health warlords that attack is that 35 health is a real problem, right? And that you can lose that real quick, and that means you end up losing races that were very close. And so that's where I found that the Tyrant Guard has been really good. The Tyrant Guard can come down and just kind of help with that race. And the second thing that it does in this deck in particular is, let's say I play a Von Ryans. Let's say I'm going against, I don't know, even like Swarmlord, and I attack with the 5, and obviously now I'm down to 1 health. But then on turn 5, by playing the Tyrant Guard, the Swarmlord can't just suddenly attack back on the range damage just to kill this for free, and now he's facing another 5 damage coming in from the Von Ryans. So the Tyrant Guard really actually has good synergy with a lot of these, you know, these stealth units, the Death Leaper, the Gene Stealer, because it protects from that free trade on the next turn coming back at you at the range damage. So I really do think the Tyrant Guard has earned its place in this deck, and now I'm very much convinced it's correct in here. And then obviously we run the Broodlord because, you know, it's the Broodlord, and we're looking for potential. You know, if we get the Broodlord down and we get the Ravenous Hunter in this deck, it's all over. And then we run the Crones as well, which are again quite good targets for the digestion pool if we're able to slower play. Although be warned, with this deck it's often correct, I think, to use the digestion pool much earlier, because you want to make sure you're getting tempo, and depending on the hand that you've got, it's not uncommon for the first turn to just use the digestion pool and drop like a Von Ryan's Leaper or a Venom Throat or a Tyranid Prime, for example, because you've then got the Gene Stealer next turn, and then you've got a second 4-drop to play, so you can actually build tempo really early on with the deck. Okay, so what we're trying to do is essentially play on curve early, establish the board, and then look for our kind of go wide turns, more around the kind of turn 6 to 8 to kind of close out the game. Alright, so let's jump into a few games and that I played and show you some examples. So yeah, the first one we've got here is actually against Tervagon. Okay, so I decided to keep this hand, and I think in the first, where are we? Yeah, in the first instance, we just basically go ahead and use our ability. This is obviously where the buff shines, because that would have just been 3 before, and I wouldn't have been sure about the trade. But I think the +2, it makes me feel more confident about doing that. But what I am looking to do now is get on with deploying our troops. So now, just winding forward, we drew the Gene Stealer and we dropped that instead. If we hadn't done that, we would have dropped the Tyranid Warrior. and just attack face as well, because again we're trying to beat our opponent down. This is the Tervigon control build, and he wants to go into the late game. Now, we did play Infinite Biomorphology, so we get this massive pain in the arse in this huge Tyrant Guard now that has the health buff, and suddenly we're looking at a little bit of a problem. So what I do here is I decide to drop the Von Ryans, because even though we want the Venom Throat, obviously we can't just drop it there naked because it'll just get taken out, and we don't have a flank. So what I'm thinking is next turn we'll drop the Venom Throat plus the stealth, and that's how we'll set up. But we are going to take some damage here, and he's even going to use Enhanced Organism and just, oh, he's going to double Enhanced Organism, and he's going to basically try and make a real pain for us. So we fast forward looking for the flank, we didn't get it, so we get the Venom Throat, and now we just drop the stealth on it and basically don't attack with the Von Ryans. And now he goes for the Ravenous Hunter, and that's going to help him to continue the pressure on our Lord and actually kill the Von Ryan. So quite a good example there of how you don't always have to use the Ravenous Hunter just for the finish. That wasn't a bad use of it there at all. But of course we now can trade with this, and that kind of stealth play paid off, although we are down quite significantly to 14. So what I'm doing here with this turn is really just setting up now for next turn. You know, next turn we can see on turn 7 we've got some options to go wide with Rippers and either Augmented Ferocity or play the War Pile. So we're just kind of setting up the board here. We know we're in a race here because we don't have a lot of health. And now he's trying to establish the board. Okay, and by using flank he can actually get rid of... I was thinking, how's he going to get rid of the Venom Throat? But he uses the flank there, and he can obviously attack with his Tervigon to clear that. So he's not worried about the instant assassination now. Okay, so at our turn, we're going to go big on the Gene Stealer, because that helps us clear off his Tervigon. Get rid of his board. Really important to clear the Termagants when you're playing against the Tervigon, because obviously you can just keep building them into huge monoliths essentially. So we've got to get rid of them, and we attack face to put a bit of pressure on, and now we're really looking to finish the game next turn, because he's going to establish a board, and we're going to have really no way of sort of getting rid of his board at this stage of the game. So we kind of now need to be looking to finish. And this is the thing with this deck, it's like as soon as your opponent's under 20 health, you really should be looking, how do I end this game? So here we go, we're going to go Ripper Swarm. So nice wide board. This is where the Neuraloid comes. We talked about this in the deck guide bit at the beginning. Nice 0 energy. And look at that, we get a big 10 attack, plus the 6 from the Gene Stealer, and that's GG. So, it's weird to think of a Ripper Swarm like a proper killer, but it's essentially like proper killer, you know, it's a very similar idea. It's just that instead of it being the Rippers that are attacking, it's your boss. But you really should think of them almost like a proper killer, really. Okay, so, nice win against the Tervigon, one of the staples of the new meta here. And then I wanted to show you this game against Calgar. Okay, so Calgar again is a 40 health Lord, so it's harder in these races. We've only got 35. Do we keep this hand? See, we've got a very troop heavy hand, which is pretty good. So we're just going to get rid of the Augmented Ferocity. And because we've got I was going to say the coin, because we've got the Digestion Pool going second, basically, this is an example of where you would just use the Digestion Pool straight away, because look at this hand, right? If we Digestion Pool into a Von Ryans, right, then we've got the Gene Stealer the next turn, then we've got another Von Ryans the next turn, then we've got the Death Leaper. So the tempo from the deck here is pretty clear for the first part of the game. So I'm going to wind it forward a bit. We drop the Von Ryans, he just draws a card, now we drop the Gene Stealer, and we're going to attack face. Now, this is the downside, right, is that obviously you can just attack back here for 2. But by attacking back, he's taken 5 damage in total, and he hasn't hit our face. So it kind of helps us with that race mechanic that we talked about, especially when we're up against a 40 health Warlord. It's really easy for them to just kind of beat us down, really. We just don't have enough health. So things like that can help in this situation. So now we've got the Gene Stealer, we're just going to drop another Von Ryans and basically hit face with the Gene Stealer, and I believe with, yeah, so another 5 damage to face. Now again, he can do the thing where he hits the Gene Stealer for free, but he's not doing the 2 damage back to us. And then this was a bit of an awkward one. Now, he did actually block here. I was trying to figure out like how I could have dealt with that with range attack, so I didn't have to trade that in, but I couldn't find an elegant way. So I just traded it and dropped the big boy down for big Death Leaper down for the next turn. And then this next turn is quite interesting. So this turn now, we've kind of got quite a few ways in which we could play this. We do have the Ravenous Hunter in hand, so obviously normally we'd be thinking about like using this for the finish. And so this turn, for example, you know, we could lay out the sort of Gene Stealer. We could try to sort of build the board essentially to sort of set that up. But when I actually thought it through and looked at it, I actually calculated that it might be a good turn to use the Ravenous Hunter here. So if I just select play. So the Ravenous Hunter will give +1/+1. Alright. Okay, so I actually just dropped the Node Beast and played the Ravenous Hunter there. And this way I can attack the face for 8 and then clear off the Cassius. And then I can obviously put another 6 damage on and try to set up. He's down to 12. We don't need Ravenous Hunter to end games once we're at 12 health, right? We can end that in many other ways. So that was like an interesting judgment call that is quite a difficult one, I think, to make. It's not like the normal way that you use it, but again, this is thinking about the Terror, that you have other ways to end the game. It's all about getting them into range of the finish for the Terror, and in that situation, the Ravenous Hunter was the way in which we got into that range rather than the finisher itself. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you think about that play, and what, you know, did you see that play? Do you agree with it? Would you have done something different? I'd be really keen to kind of get some opinions on it. I thought that for that turn quite a long time, really used the time to make that play, and in the end I thought it was right, but I'd be interested in hearing what you say. And there we go. Go ahead and just finish the game off with the nice Adrenaline Surge, and so another nice win. And again, it plays like a very sort of like aggro tempo-y sort of early mid range at best, this deck. Now, one more game to share with you. Now, I did play another Tervigon game and lost. And the big thing there is, I won't bore you with it, but I made a massive misplay early on. I still continued the game. I was going to just resign after turn 3, but I still continued the game, and I lost. But I wanted to then show you this game against Swarmlord, because it's quite interesting, isn't it? Swarmlord obviously comes with that 3 melee attack, and it's a bit of a problem for a deck like this, where everything in our deck really is revolving around melee damage. So decks like that do often struggle with Swarmlord. So what we've done here is we've actually got rid of the Adrenaline Surge and the Neuroid. There's an argument to keep the Surge, really, especially giving us like, obviously it can give us the +2 on the range attack that can help us clear out early on. But with the Terror's ability, I don't necessarily feel like you need a Surge for early clear, because you can just use his Warlord talent instead. And I'm much happier with that. And again, I believe we've got the Digestion Pool, which one day I won't call the coin, because this is not Hearthstone. He plays the Infinite Biomorphologies, which is again really scary to see on turn 2, and basically hits us in the face. And we've also got the Sweeping Infestation on here, which he's put on. So the Warlord with the most health is taking 1 damage per turn. So we go ahead and use the pool straight away. We want to get some tempo up. So we go and build a big beast, knowing that obviously if he wants to use the Warlord to hit us, he's going to take 4 damage in the face. Now, he did use the infamous... Huh. Okay. I'm not really sure what's just happened, but I think the replay mode just completely crashed. So I'm just going to dive back into that very quickly. I'm not sure why that happened. Maybe I paused for too long or something. A little bit buggy there on the replay mode, e.g. But we'll just wind straight back on to where we got to. It was very early in the game, so that's fine. I think he played a Gene Stealer, basically. Yeah, so he plays the Gene Stealer, and of course he got the buff from the biomorphologies. Okay, so he's up to 5 health Gene Stealer, so at least we know he's got +2 health on everything. And here we're going to go ahead and just develop the warrior. And I actually attack with the range damage. Obviously we would have died there if we'd attacked with the melee. And if he wants to attack us back, he has to use his melee, so which he does. So we actually got, you know, 6 damage out of that, so that's quite nice for us. Nice trading. Kind of using the Swarmlord stats against him a little bit. So he does take over the board, but we're going to just drop the Von Ryans here. And you can see already we're into this race, right? Like, he's got a big unit, we've got a stealth unit, so we're sort of into this race. And I think what he thinks is, right, I'm going to win this race because actually you can't take out my Gene Stealer very easily. We've kind of, and he's setting up, oh, he brings down the Synapse. I'm not 100... Oh, yeah, because he wants to stealth, right? So by putting that into stealth, he's sort of setting up lethal. So what we do, and this is where I think the Tyranid Guard just comes in handy, right? We obviously drop that guard going, okay, you're going to like have this big swing. Now, we probably lose to Ravenous Hunter here. Yeah, Ravenous Hunter would be double attack, but he doesn't have it. So the Tyranid Guard does its job. And that gives the swing back to us in terms of winning the race. Obviously now he's like, oh shit, so he has to clear this off. And I think that's a mistake, by the way, to attack there against the Terror, because he's just going to put himself into range for us. And so we are obviously just looking at a kind of Ripper Swarm board-wide finish, which I think should give us a total of 8 attack. So obviously the Alpha Warrior gives us 4, and we get an extra 1 for the other 4, so that should give us a big 8 attack, and that would finish off the Swarmlord. So you can see, like, a lot of the games with this deck, they end in those types of races, and that's why, to me, it feels very much like a sort of aggro or low-end mid-range deck, you know, like a fast mid-range deck, essentially. And, yeah. So that is my Assassin's build, guys. As I say, there's a few cards in there that we could definitely introduce. The Blast was one that we talked about, and I really do feel like this deck, you know, it can compete at the minute because it's in this interesting spot where the games aren't easy and they need thinking about, but it can just outspeed and beat down quite a few of the meta decks at the minute. So I definitely think that this is a good deck to try, and I don't know how good it is overall. Like, I'm definitely not claiming that this is like an S tier deck, but I do think it's an interesting way to play the Terror. It's not just, oh, let's just spam loads of crap units and go wide. It's actually playing, you know, a very strong mechanic in stealth, and it's playing like decent units, and it's making use of the Terror's warlord talent as and when you need it, like when it's actually appropriate, when it's actually going to make a difference to the game. So yeah, let me know what you think, guys. Let me know in the comments what you think to this and what you'd like to see next. We've got some really interesting and exciting news and content coming soon, so if you haven't subscribed, I suggest you do. There's going to be a tsunami of stuff coming in the next few weeks, so stay close to the channel, and thanks for all your support. I'll see you in the next one.